to Berlin, Germany for round 2 of the LEC Spring Playoffs. The Fnatic hype train is racing towards Rotterdam, but in their way stands Splyce, looking to stop the reigning champions in their tracks. I'm EpicSkillshot, joined by Daniel Dracos and Christy Ender Frierson. Round 2 is upon us. Finally, been waiting a week for it. I anticipated it for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know what's better, our matches today or the fact that I'm standing in witness of greatness. I mean, you two are rap legends.
That is true. We didn't want to bring it up ourselves.
That. Yeah, that was.
But since you
so we paid you to do that. I'll give you your
great.
$10 afterwards. Thank you. Rap legend. Write it down, folks.
Rap legend.
Ender said it. It's true now.
But
that's how it works.
Now isn't as important as the fact that we are covering round 2 of the playoffs, even though we'll bring it up whenever we can. But huge occasion. Of course, 4 teams are still left in the race for that very first LEC trophy. And we wanted to kind of run down and give an overview of all of those 4 teams. And whilst we do that, we also need your help. You at home can vote in chat G2, OG, FNC, or SPY for whoever you think will win the first LEC trophy. So now we're going to run down all these contestants, and I think we have to start with Fnatic. They are the reigning champions and 2-time champions in 2018, and we're looking at them since they beat Vitality last week and are coming into their next match.
Yeah, this is an organization with 7 European titles under their belt, and of course, last year they won two tournaments in a row here in the EULCS and went on to Worlds. And that was an incredible run from this team. The first time since Season 1, any team, which by the way was Fnatic won it all in Season 1,
yes,
to make it to the finals, and they put on a good show.
NA person saying that actually mattered. Thank you for that.
I didn't say it mattered, I just said it happened.
We take those. We take those. We definitely, most certainly take those. And of course, as we come into this year, if you're a Fnatic fan, you were worried, you were skeptical. I think everyone was kind of wondering what would happen with Fnatic, and it wasn't until the second half of the split that we finally saw Fnatic surge. Now, Shucks is on this huge win streak. They're looking better than ever. I think it's 11 games coming into the series today, and they're looking like a big threat. Yeah,
and I think whenever you take a look at that lineup for Fnatic, whoever is in that team, it really doesn't matter, although, of course, they have great players again this time around, but they have that competitive gene, that edge that seems to activate whenever they're in trouble or whenever they are in the fight for a trophy, and that is why they're now looking to make that 7 into an 8, and they are one of, the huge team to beat, I say. Even though G2 is, I think, more hyped coming into this playoffs, Fnatic is one of those that you always have to take into account.
Absolutely sleeper. I mean, I think the thing that when you look at this team is just the fact that they've been surging, the fact that they have this history and this pedigree, the fact that, you know, the new players in their lineup are looking so good, the Nemesis is looking so good. It's just incredible for this team.
It is incredible, but as said, the team that we were talking about the most during this split is G2 Esports. They ended the regular season in that #1 position, and of course, when we look back at their pedigree in Europe, they were unstoppable in 2016 and 2017, 4 straight titles for them.
Absolutely was the case, and honestly, when they came in, I wasn't sure what to expect from them in this league, but they won the first title, they picked up Sven and Mithy, they win the second title, and honestly, it just felt like that was the G2 era, that no one in Europe was going to touch this team ever. Of course, international performances weren't too fantastic, but when we came into 2018, a year where we thought they would struggle, they actually put up some of their biggest results.
Yeah, it didn't matter. They lost Sven and Mithy. People had questions about this roster, but they still made the finals in spring. In summer, they were able to qualify for Worlds, and were again another very impressive European team on the international stage. They made it to the semifinals, which is more than a lot of other regions can say.
And as a fan of competition, you can't have anything but respect for the boss move they pulled at the beginning of this by just taking Caps. You can't beat him, have him join you, and they dominated the split with him as well. Now it's going to be left to be seen if they will end up versus Fnatic in the end or who they will end up playing, but no, that storyline is spicy.
I just want to see that rivalry on stage. I'm not going to lie. I feel like we've been denied a Fnatic G2 best of 5. We'll see if we get it. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, the other 2 teams, of course, is still in the playoffs. Also, nothing to joke around about. Splyce, an absolute mainstay in European League of Legends and have made every single playoffs since spring 2016. And I think for me, I always do look back at that 2016 year for them, their breakout year where they evolved and even got to Worlds at the end of it.
Yeah, that was the impressive thing, right? They come in as rookies into the league. First split, not so hot. Second split, they go to the finals up against G2. They make it to Worlds and are able to beat even a team like RNG there. The rest of the run wasn't that great, but they were able to take down at least one tall competition. Now, this team, the next few years, weren't the same level of success making it to the international stage, but this was a team that was always in the playoffs and always competing in a lot of 5-game series.
I think that has always been a contender and has often been kind of touted as the underdog. And I think the difference maker this year that I think elevates them to a certain degree is the fact that Kobbe has been getting better and better, and really Xerxes coming into his own as well. It does build a lot of hope for the Splyce lineup.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for them to take that next step, and maybe it can be today versus Fnatic. Super excited to see how that matchup plays out, but the final team we have to touch on, we'll see them tomorrow versus G2, but it is Origen. And when we say the name Origen, it does make you think of that legendary 2015, right? The final versus Fnatic, the World's appearances in semi-final. 2016, not too hot, but we
don't talk about 2016.
Yeah.
We don't talk about 2016.
No.
But I mean, it's a huge statement for Origen. When you look at this 2015 record, it was incredible. It is something that European fans will always look back on. Both their Worlds run and the final they played versus Fnatic. Just a fantastic team, a fantastic story, and it feels like that story has carried them through so much, has built up this pedigree, because even when they had abysmal following splits, even when they disappeared for so long, the second they came back into the LEC, fans were ready to support them again.
Yeah, they're definitely a fan favorite, and they're backing it up on the Rift as well.
Yeah, this team has gone through a little bit of a transformation because the first few weeks weren't that hot, but I think it's a very smart team. And while it's not 5 players that are going to be the best in their position, it's 5 very well-known names that you know have the knowledge to back it up, and their play has been shown.
Yeah, 4 formidable contestants, or contenders rather, for the title. Let's see what the people at home think. Fnatic 57,
the fans are
22, Splyce 7, and OG. You're in front of OG. Can you move, please?
That's just
13. Oof.
Go to the,
Oh, and
you
13.
you are remaining unconvinced. You can stand over here with me, Andrew.
Yeah,
you appear to remain unconvinced at home because this is a fat section of the bar.
Yeah.
57%
There's not
is
even
huge.
enough room to put Splyce in the end. Unfortunately, like it's completely.
Like it's just a tiny bit of yellow.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of yellow in here with Fnatic as well.
Guys, we should not be surprised when it comes to fan favoritism. It usually always goes the way of Fnatic. I don't know if they're voting quite analytically or as analytically as us.
I mean, Fnatic is also a team that have won their last 11 games in a row,
true.
so it's not just that they are the fan favorites. This was by far the hottest team coming into playoffs, and I think fans also respect that.
Definitely so. Well, all these teams, these 4 teams, are competing in our brand new playoffs format. 3 of them will be making it to Rotterdam next week, and since it is a new format, we do want to move it or talk you through it just once again. Of course, Fnatic or Splyce, the winner of this match will go straight to the semi-final, of course, next week, Saturday, and they will be up against the loser of G2 and OG. Now, because G2 was first seed and OG was second seed, they basically get a bit of a double elimination bracket, because if you lose tomorrow, you still play that semi-final in a second chance to make it to the grand final. The winner of G2 OG goes straight to the final.
Yeah, and of course, looking at that across the board, it's really important now, getting to Rotterdam. Whoever wins here today in this matchup will be going to Rotterdam, this Splyce Fnatic hype. And it's hype because you can get those finals to tickets, or tickets for the finals for ticket, excuse me.
Should I do it?
13th. Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't hosted. Do you want to do it? You want to try it?
Yes. So
yeah, okay. Oh, all right. Well,
no more third place match. We have our semi-final on Saturday and our final on Sunday, and you can get your tickets on eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam. There we go. It's not easy. There's a lot to talk about. Now, 2 teams that will also be there are G2 and Origen, and they will be fighting for a spot tomorrow. Now, since this is such a highly anticipated match, I did want to dive into it a little bit today. I know we've got Fnatic versus Vitality, and I don't think they'll be mad at us if we take some time to preview this one, because it's such a mystery. What G2 will show up? What OG will show up? Do they have a chance?
I mean, both of these teams we haven't seen play in 3 weeks, right? And while you see these 2 teams say it's been a while, I think a lot of people know what to expect when you see Origen. It's going to be the slower, more methodical type of League of Legends, where I don't really know what G2 we're going to be seeing. Is this the G2 that crushed the first half of the split? They're winning every game in 20 minutes. Or is it more of what we saw in the last few weeks, where it wasn't quite up to that same level?
And honestly, for me, it's really terrifying, because from an outside perspective, I want to predict OG, but when we had pros on Euphoria, everyone was still predicting G2,
yeah.
So it's so hard to say. But inevitably, the matchup that you look at is the one that's right behind us, and that's Caps versus anybody. And normally, Caps versus anybody is like, okay, Caps wins, that means G2 wins. But the exciting thing about this matchup is that I really believe, and I think a lot of people really believe, that Nuke Duck could go toe-to-toe, especially after the last time they met, where he smashed Caps.
Yeah, and that can be the difference maker. Now, there is someone who can stand up to that superstar mid laner, but a lot of people are talking about the fact that Caps is just too strong for any team here in Europe. And tomorrow we'll, of course, see about that. And it's not just the players that are going toe-to-toe. It's also some members of the broadcast team who had some fierce words to say about tomorrow's game.
What up, Betty? Reppin' OG this time, just another loser to bet on.
Ooh, Daniel Dracos. Hosting, casting, rapping. Tell me, do you wake up mediocre or is it just a conscious effort?
Maybe we should have let you film in that bathtub with XPK, seeing how much you brown-nose an OG. What else I got? Motivation, work, improvement, team. Your only recent achievement was going 0-13. Mechanics like you ain't got hands, brain dead boy, you don't understand. Split up the map that you only plan. 1-3-1 of the game's done, man. One good half split under your belt, you think you're back at the top. Hate to break it to you, you and your boots crew play G2 and you'll get dropped. #1 for a reason. Crush the whole season. We'll leave you crying. We'll leave you bleeding. We gonna end this, you bet. Remember the first time we met? Killed him so many times, thinking that the colorblind Sonic's just a gray screen. Tap a chick a scoreline. We can beat you with Mickey X. We can beat you with Promise Q. No matter what you try to do, it's never gonna be enough for you. From fiestas to siestas, boy, you put me to sleep. Nobody wants to watch you stall a game for a week.
Sure, Dracos. You're pretty good, but honestly, that Sifa guy was much better. Together named Kings, we're the OG. Put your hands together if you all remember me. We were here for the best years. 2015 and the whole world cheers. Carried EU, unlike G2. Dropped out of groups, fans coming for you. That Origen, original. When we beat you, we'll be clear to call. 1,000 cuts, it's all it's gonna take. Someone said he's how we win this race. Based on recent play, I thought Mickey X was promiscuous. Mine and could land more skill shots than she's playing, I promise you. You've been skipping steps like Carlos skipping leg day. 50-50 Barons, and what the f does that say? They risk it all on a single call. Lost to SK, now I see the fall. You can't keep up, so you're playing safe. How many excuses have we seen you fake? It's bad drafts, it's bad reads, it's Mickey's wrist, it's just greed. When are you gonna admit your boys are just playing like shit?
Vetti, my boys playing like shit is still twice as good as your boys. You should have to go through some motherfucking plans even to get a chance to go toe-to-toe with the best. OG revisionist history like 2016 was a mystery. Don't worry, Europe won't let you forget. World's relegation, the worst record yet. Pray you can beat me, pray for that TP. Bet on that backdoor, boy you're discreet. Nuke gonna get new, boy ain't got no jukes. Making a career out of being third best. Cap's gonna cap him, Renick like a bad scrim versus G2. Gonna die like the rest. Breaking the game like we're certainly T. A collie out playing, I get those for free.
Is this a bot lane? One that can challenge? Someone can push us? Someone with talent?
No, this is Patrick, just a little scared kid, just picked up cause no one tried to outbid. But it's okay cause we paired him with Mithy. He might be washed up but his brand is nifty. He can't push his buttons, he does seem to int. He sounds nice in interviews, I guess that's it. But hey OG, you won the grand prize. This'll be your only high to lose to G2 first so everyone can see that you're the worst. Come back in finals, we'll hit you twice. Might give you a game if we're nice.
Hey, Vetti, what? You really think you need help with this fool? Are you kidding me? He can't even cast the World's quarterfinal. Like, are you serious? G2 vacation started early this year. You're losing the Splyce? We got nothing to fear. Wonder solving world hunger, Yanko's missing his shit. Perk Sivir mid lane, the boy can't even right click. Remember the last time we met? Cap solo killed, no threat. Close it out cleanly, you bet. Give us that Z, Nuke's fed. Give us that Z, you're dead. I'm not even boasting. Caps has a champion pool, but our own Nuke has an ocean. So get ready to drown in it. We'll beat you down with it. Excuse me, Mr. Yankos, what's that caught in your throat? Another best of 5, you're choking? Your career is a joke. But at least you're better than Perk. Ran from his own lane, that's work. So keep hiding bot side, Caps will come in a jiffy. In the meantime, please enjoy getting smacked up by Mythy. I see the cracks in the surface. I know your flex picks are worthless. You know your empire's about to expire. You know that you do not deserve this. So try another verse. Go and try another diss. You can take a shot at the queen, but you best not miss.
So I get to take a shot at the queen.
Because you got absolutely
Oh my god, you can't do this to me. I got roasted in an actual... No, you can't hit me twice. Oh, I did say I'd hit you twice. I mean, it's fair. Okay,
Don't miss.
You're clever. I missed. Yeah, all right. I mean, fair.
We obviously had a lot of fun making this, and hopefully you guys are as hyped as we are for G2 versus OG. However, back to the regularly scheduled business, and that is the patch. Now, of course, last week we played on patch 9.6 for the first time. Now we want to see how things will evolve and what picks are a priority, and Ender's going to run us through that, so we can calm down. You can take a breath.
How am I supposed to follow this up? I don't know. Whatever, we're gonna try it. Well guys, round 1 of playoffs brought a new patch to Pro Play, and with it, some new picks. First up is Urgot. But Ender, all we did was see Urgot for all of last year. Well, that might be true, but 9.6 introduced massive buffs to Urgot that have seen his jungling ability increase dramatically. Damage buffs to his passive E and R with AD ratios shooting up have made his clear substantially better. And with junglers being able to itemize easily into attack damage with Warrior and Black Cleaver, well, those are his core items, and we saw Xerxes have an impressive performance on the pick, even in a losing game. Now, if you want to play him in your own games, you'll want to put points in W first. At max rank, there is no cooldown, and the spell becomes a toggle. That means that at level 9, you become an unstoppable killing machine and are certain to purge all of your foes. Now, next on the list is Hecarim. Last week, Hecarim saw 2 picks and 3 bans in just 7 games total. But in the patch notes, the buff on his Q fit in just 1 line of text. That is, it deals 10% additional damage per stack of Rampage. Now, while this seems innocent, the extra power in extended fights paired up with the use of Conqueror makes the pony a terror in both one-on-one duels and in team fights. And with so many games revolving around strong top lane picks that also have a high impact in team fights, we can be sure to expect this pick to stick around for the rest of playoffs. Now, last up is Kayle. And I'm sure you've all experienced her dominance in solo queue recently. I know I have. And if you haven't, then you've surely seen Game 3 between Fnatic and Vitality, where Nemesis made the champion look completely busted. And while that game might have been a little bit of an exaggeration of her power, I still expect to see this pick return. Kayle's rework took power out of her early game to give her the strongest level 11 and 16 power spikes in the entire game. The only problem with that is Kayle doesn't need to hit those levels to evolve and reach her final form. She merely needs to spend 11 or 16 skill points, which means that most pro players have taken to the church of RNG by running Kleptomancy and hoping they can get their hands on that elusive elixir of skill. Now, if you're able to become fully ranged by level 10 or have permanent true damage by level 15, not only will you surprise your opponents, but you will simply run them over as Nemesis did to Vitality. And with a couple new teams coming into round 2, I'm excited to see what they can bring to the table.
Yeah, me too, because in the Fnatic Vitality series, we actually didn't see that much of adaptation on the new patch. Of course, we saw the Kayle coming out in that 3rd game. I feel like Splyce versus SK was one where we did see a lot of these picks come out. Of course, the Hecarim famously. So I wonder how much each of these teams have already shown and how much they're willing to experiment on this patch in the round 2.
Yeah, I think looking at it, Hecarim definitely seems to be the highest priority of these new picks, where he's constantly being banned in the first rotation. I think is a relatively safe blind pick for those top laners as well, where I was a little surprised we didn't see more Urgot, especially in both jungle and top lane.
Yeah, we'll see, of course, how that continues today. Before we move on and we get to Fnatic versus Splyce, one thing we want to highlight is also the amazing finish to the Superliga Orange Finals. That is, of course, the Spanish league, where the title and a spot in EU Masters were on the line between Splyce Vipers and Origen VCN. They brought it all the way to Game 5.
Teleporta bien de Freeze, teleporta bien de Freeze. Viene el hombre helado, viene el de la sangre de hielo. No es Kimi Raikkonen, es Freeze. No me lo creo, 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 Ernesto. 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 Se va a quedar guapo el Freeze. No me lo creo, Ernesto. No me lo creo, Ernesto. Shutdown para Freeze. Pike se lleva otra kill. Royson escapando con todo. Viene Pike, teleporta a la base. Víctor, cántamelo, papá.
No me lo puedo creer lo que acabamos de ver. Orome con el teleport y este sí que puede terminar.
¡Dios mío!
No me lo creo.
El final más épico en la historia de la Superliga Orange. El final más épico en la historia de la Superliga Orange. Me voy a morir con 24 años. Va a pusear Splyce Vipers. Son los nuevos campeones de la Superliga Orange. Vienen a pusear, van a intentar terminar la partida. Tienen pocos minions, se llevan la última torre de Nexo. Llega Zanzara con el home run. Tiran el Nexo. No me lo puedo creer. Splyce Vipers.
Oh, wow. What a
campeones
game 5.
de la
And
Superliga
yeah, Evi just
RDY.
makes that so incredibly hype, even though it was already hype. He said, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm going to die at 24 years old. This is the best thing I've ever seen. I like even sometimes like look at the rebroadcast of like the LEC as well, because he's just
to
so
see.
damn
I mean,
good.
Evi's untouchable. I'm
Yeah.
really glad, like, if he was as fluent in English as he was in Spain, I wouldn't have a job. So thank you, Ebi, for remaining thus far. Man is absolute
and this
beast.
became like an Ebi like praising session, but obviously Splyce Vipers also made it to EU Masters, which is going to be big and is in a couple of weeks as well. So congratulations to them. Fantastic ending there to the Superliga. But now we are going to look ahead towards Fnatic versus Splyce, which is our marquee matchup today. And whatever team wins, of course, advances to the semifinal, the very first semifinal of the LEC next Saturday. Now, let's take a look at how both teams got here. Fnatic obviously kind of ran over Vitality. Last week, it was a highly anticipated matchup. That wasn't as hype in the end as we thought it was going to be, mainly because, in my opinion, Vitality was just feeding them kills left and right, but I don't want to take anything away from Fnatic.
So I think Ender's definitely on the feeding kill side. I'm gonna err on the side of positivity for Fnatic, and I do want to point at Bwipo when we do that, because Vitality had one very clear strategy, and it was we will play through Cabo, we will shut Bwipo down so far into the ground that Cabo can take over the game, and it just never happened. Now, part of that was, yes, mistakes on the side of Vitality, but the other half of that coin is Bwipo playing incredibly well, incredibly consistently, even in situations where he shouldn't have been able to get advantages.
Let's be honest, this guy's just hard counter-picking himself in every match. I've seen him blind pick Gangplank way too much, but he's still able to stay relevant in his games, and that's impressive.
Yeah, that is definitely scary for if you're going up against him. Now Fnatic is on an 11-game winning streak. Do you guys find it harder to kind of assess how good Fnatic really is because of how skewed that match was, or do you have a pretty clear indication of their level?
I think for me, it's really hard to say. I know Fnatic is strong. I know Fnatic is quite strong, but their ceiling, I don't think we've seen yet. Okay. We don't know how they're going to approach this patch. You mentioned it earlier. All we really saw from them was Kayle as far as new picks go, so Fnatic is good. Fnatic is definitely a contender, but are they the best team right now? Are they second best? I don't know. This match is going to show us a lot.
And the question is, how good is this Splyce? I think they're on track to have a fantastic split so far. I've been really impressed with them at several times in this split. In their specific round 1 match, they were up versus SK Gaming. I would say it was a bit more dicey, but that also allowed us to see the individual talent that stepped up for Splyce in that round 1 match.
Yeah, Splyce dropped their first game against SK, but it really was impressive to see the team fighting. For me, you talk about individual players, and for me, that was Xerxes. He absolutely stepped up in this series, both with his early game pathing and tracking of Selfmade. He made Selfmade unable to get anything done, and that was because he always showed up to counter gank when early plays were being made by the other side, and I think he'll be the big difference maker in today's match.
I agree. I also think that Splyce feels like they are hungry for that next step. They've been to so many playoffs, all of them since 2016, outside of one, I believe, and now they just really want to take that next step, and beating Fnatic would be huge for this organization.
I mean, it's massive, right? Because I think Splyce, despite the fact that they have consistently been a contender, they're always kind of counted one tier below the other top teams. And this, no doubt, smashing Fnatic here would put you in that top tier with Origen, with G2.
And one guy who definitely wants to do that is their AD carry, Kabi, and Laura is standing by to talk to him before this first game.
Thank you very much, Shax, and thank you, Kabe, for joining me. Last week, when I spoke to your mates, you guys seemed confident. How has the prep gone this week?
I would say it has gone pretty standard for how we prep in best of fives. We spend a lot of time studying the opponent, studying what can be exploited about our own playstyle. So we've been working extremely hard just the past few weeks because it's pretty much do or die when it comes to playoffs, and yeah, just working really hard and we're ready.
There's something special about you, though, because you've been in every iteration of Splyce since the team came in the LCS and now the LEC. Interestingly enough, you never played Fnatic in a long series, so how do you expect this one to go, considering you went 0-2 against them during the splits?
Yeah, our games in the regular split didn't go too well, but I think we have a pretty good shot in a best of 5, at least compared to what everyone is saying. The way I see it is that we have everything to win and not much to lose, even though it was obviously sucked to lose, but I think we're going to show a much stronger performance than we did against them in the regular split.
Really glad to hear. Now a bit more about you, because there is some kind of rivalry going between you and Reckless. And last week in PGL he said, when I play against Splyce, we come out ahead, but other ADCs push me to my limits. What is your take on this?
Well, I don't quite agree with what he's saying, but we'll see today. Maybe it's right if it turns out that way, but I don't think it will. But we definitely don't agree on some stuff, I would say.
Well, let's see how this one turns out. Thank you very much for your answers and good luck on the Rift today.
Thank you.
Now back to you, Shox.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure to hear from Kabi. He was very, very polite, I would say, but he is the all-pro AD carry. Kabi up versus, well, one of the most legendary AD carries Europe has ever seen, which is Reckless. Now, they have never played against each other in a best-of-5. How will this influence the entire matchup if you know how much especially Splyce likes to play around Kabi?
And then before I talk, I do want to highlight that you guys can vote on the stream over twitch.tv/RiotGames2 if you want to watch from Kabi's POV or Reckless's POV. Just spam their name in chat. And I'm going to say Kabi today. Now, normally I'm on the Reckless train.
Okay.
But for me, Kabi has been so consistent in late game team fights. And while absolutely Reckless has been ramping it up, I think it's been a team effort as a whole. Whereas at the end of the day, over the years, when it's come down to the wire in late game team fights, Kabi has absolutely always been there for this team.
Yeah,
the question is, do you get there against Fnatic?
That is a good question, because while Kabi has always been a team fighter, he's never been a laning AD carry. Whereas you look over at Reckless, and his numbers look a bit wonky because he averages 16.4 CSD at 15 minutes. That's absolutely absurd in the bottom lane. But then you see 8th place in damage per minute, 10th place in damage share. The games Fnatic have been playing just don't go long enough for him to deal the damage. What he does is he crushes you in the lane. He looks for picks like Lucian and strong supports to set him up, and that's where I think Fnatic could attack in the team.
And I think maybe that's why last week in PGL, when asked about Kabi, Reckless said, I really never have any trouble with him. Because in lane, that's what Reckless does. And I'm really hoping that we get to go past that 35-minute mark and we see them go toe-to-toe in that late game. But do we think it's going to happen at all?
I mean, one of the scariest things about Fnatic right now is their early game. And I'm not talking like 10, 15 minutes. I'm talking at 5 minutes. We're talking the level 1 invades, the clever early jungle pathing to just shut down and disrupt. When we were prepping for this series ender last week, when they were going to play versus Vitality, we saw at 5 minutes, they had on average a 1K gold lead in the second half. That's disgusting. That is a huge game-winning advantage before the lane phase even really starts to take off. And then when you take into 15 minutes, you can see what they do with those very early game gold leads. So it is just terrifying to try to survive against Fnatic.
Now, Fnatic in their series against Vitality did play very scaling drafts twice. So while I think their best plan of attack is to go hard in the early game and catch Splyce off guard, I do believe that we will see at least 1 or 2 games that go later on, and that's Splyce's best chance to compete.
So that is kind of their win condition. Do you think that's the only thing they can do for Splyce? Because we've seen a very well-rounded team that has played very convincingly. Second half of the split and the entire split. Are we really still just saying, go to the late game? That feels counter.
No, so it's not just go to the late game, because Xerxes I have my eyes on, because he has sort of bridged the gap. Because ultimately what we did see Splyce pull off a really strong 1-3-1 comp. I don't think that's something that will be successful against Fnatic. In this matchup, that's where I say Splyce have the advantage in team fighting, specifically looking at Kabe, and you need Xerxes to get them to that 30-minute point.
Okay, fair.
I also do want to give a little bit of credit to Splyce's creativity that they showed last week. You can see a lot of these team fights, a lot of new picks coming out for them. Vizicachi much more present on, you know, a lot of these split pushes. You see the Kennen here, but it was Jace in his series versus SK. We had Kabi mixing it up as well. But this team fighting is a massive strong point, and with it now being backed up by some more creative drafts with some different strategies being brought to the table, it only adds to kind of the puzzle of this matchup, and it makes me think that Splyce may have more to show us.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. Some people say, well, they had to show a lot versus SK, but Duke also said, no, really, we have a lot of these strategies. We have a lot in our back pocket, and I think we have to believe in that pedigree, because Duke has done fantastic work with the rest of his coaches for Splyce this year, and I feel like best of fives is where that all comes into fruition. But the question is, will it happen? Let's take a look at our predictions and see. I know I definitely voted for Fnatic, and I think it might be similar across the board. Let's see if anyone fell out. I know that Laura voted for Splyce, as well as Romain, but you know, he always gives like really crazy predictions. In this case though, I think it makes sense. But why is it that, is this blind faith? They won so much.
No, it's faith. They've won their last 11 games.
It is an 11-game win streak. It's definitely not blind faith. Now, I'm the outlier here, so maybe I'll talk about this.
Go for it.
I really do not think we've seen everything that Splyce have to offer, and I do really believe in that preparation that Splyce brought to the table last week against SK. I think they'll show something similar today. That said, I think when it comes down to the wire, Fnatic just feel like the better team, and I just don't see how Splyce can win this series as a whole, but they will definitely make Fnatic work for it.
All right, super, super interesting. Fnatic on their way to perhaps their 8th title, or can Splyce stop them in their tracks and take that huge step forward in the LEC playoffs? Time to find out who moves on to the semifinal. Fnatic and Splyce will clash on the Rift.
I don't think I'm ever gonna forget the moment of when we had to walk out the World Final Arena and there was so much noise. Turning my back against that crowd and hearing them cheer for IG was one of the most heartbreaking feelings I ever had in my life.
Biggest problem for me was regaining confidence. I was kind of having to fight these demons within my head where they were constantly telling me that I wasn't good enough and I didn't have it in me anymore. I would go to bed, think that whatever I did today was a complete waste, and then the next day I knew that the same thing would happen, so I didn't really see like a light at the end of the tunnel.
I was super afraid of going on social media, and surprisingly enough, there was zero negativity. It was just a lot of fans coming there to cheer me up, and yeah, having all that support when you're at your lowest just means so much.
Whenever we're in the studio or whenever we're off to an event, then I know that the fans have our backs. I can hear them through my headset, in the beginning of the game, chanting our names. And I feel like when you're at an event and this happens, the other team actually gets scared of you.
Having a fan base is important, no matter how big or small it is. Doesn't matter to me if I have 1 million fans or one that they care enough. Even just my mother, if only she's watching, I'm really happy.
There's that feeling that you don't want to disappoint them because they've been there for 3 years and they always support you and want to see you succeed. You want to win because of them.
Kobe's still on the front line, he gets one. Kobe's do it? He's still alive. He gets self-made. He gets period. Somehow Kobe managed to survive.
I get annoyed when people tell me that, oh, you're so good, you should play in a better team, because I'm a part of Splyce and I'm going to take them to an LEC title.
I wish Rotterdam would win a lot because I've never played on a stage that big. I will not be satisfied until I at least get there. That's the ultimate dream.
When you're a Fnatic, you're just supposed to win. It's like a must,
Taking home that trophy would be the only proper way to repay the fans.
In the fight for the trophy, only one of these teams will be able to continue down the path. Hello, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshow Henry, joined at the Casters by Indiana, Frosker, and Black, as well as Andrew VODS Day. Winner goes to Rotterdam. Loser is eliminated. The stakes cannot get higher, Frosker.
Yeah, and before we jump into this and get into the champions, I want to talk about the evolution, because I feel like on the analyst desk, it was continuously talking about, but Splyce, they showed all these picks, they were really pushed against SK, they pulled out the Vel'Koz and the Jace, whereas Fnatic didn't have to show anything against Vitality. And I want fans to think about the 4 teams that are left. We've got Origen, G2, Splyce, and Fnatic. We assume that Splyce and Fnatic are not scrimming each other. We know that G2 and Fnatic don't scrim each other. That means Splyce are probably getting scrims exclusively with G2, or at least getting scrims from G2. So if you're going under that intense training, how does that forge this team, and how does that change